Okay, welcome to my talk about the art of throwing errors. So first of all, many thanks to our sponsors. Without them, this conference would just not be possible. So about me, I'm Emrys. I'm a team lead of a small team called Deployment and Automation at a healthcare company called Medavis. I've been in IT for the past 19 years, and after playing around with VB script, if someone remembers, I started with PowerShell and fell in love and never looked back. Okay, so what we're going to talk about, we're just going to generally talk what are errors in general, then what kind of types of errors exist. We're going to have a look at an error record, and then we're just going to look at ways to throw errors in your scripts and functions. What this talk is about, obviously, throwing errors. What this talk is not about, it's not about error handling. So we're not going to talk about that topic at all. We might touch it, but not focus of this talk. So what are errors? So basically, when we're coding, there are different kinds of errors. For example, there are syntax errors. That's code that breaks the grammatical rules of the language. For example, here we're just missing in the right output, missing the quotation marks. That will break. This is not the kind of error we're going to talk about. Then logical errors, basically flaws in your program logic, which have a wrong result. For example, here we are missing the parentheses around the 4 plus 10. So not going to talk about these errors. It will execute correctly though. And also semantic errors. They are correct syntax, but incorrect meaning or use of operation. So for example, here in the if, we've got the number equals to, and it should modulo, will never work. But it will run, but it's still an error. And then we have runtime errors, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So these errors occur during the program execution, such as division by zero, or invalid memory access, or file not found exception, something like that. And of course, when we write code and we get information which we think is wrong, we want to throw such a runtime exception. So in PowerShell, basically, we've got two types of errors. We got non-terminating errors. They do not stop the execution of the code. So a non-terminating error will just get printed on your console. The script execution will continue, and all the code after that will be executed. It's pretty unique to PowerShell. So in other languages, they don't know this concept of non-terminating errors. And where we need them is, for example, when we go out and have a function that goes and pulls information from 100 servers. We don't want the execution to stop just because one server is offline. We just want it to print the error and continue with the execution. So that's an example where you use non-terminating errors. Examples for non-terminating errors are writeError. I suppose we all use it. And the PS-commanded writeError method. So if we use advanced functions, we can use this method to throw errors, non-terminating errors. So on the other side, of course, we got terminating errors. So terminating errors stops the execution of your code. You hit the error, it gets printed out, the code execution stops. Unless we put it in try-catch block and we or the person who gets the error handles this exception. Examples for this is the throw keyword. I'm sure most of you have used the throw keyword in the past. And the PS commandlet throw terminating error method. That's it for the slides. Let's get into demos. Okay, so let's just have a look at an error. So this prints an error out. I'm getting a child item, path doesn't exist, throws an error. What we got here is we got the activity, what threw the error. We get the line of code and the file where the error occurred. That's printed out, gives us information about that. We get more information about the exact line where the error occurred. And we get the error message, so cannot find path. So we heard lots of us are still stuck to PowerShell 5 just because we have to in our environments. So if you're still on PowerShell 5, you know the normal view. Let me just execute that. So we get the dreaded red text. It's hard to read, but just gives us more information than with a concise view. So once again, we got activity, we got the error message, we get the file and the line where the error was thrown. We get the exact line again, but we also get category info. And category info is quite interesting because this gives us the error category. It gives us the target object and the type of object it is. So this is just a string. We get the activity again, and then we get the actual exception, which is a item not found exception. And we get a fully qualified error ID. So great. So this isn't very useful. It just change back to concise view. So this isn't very helpful. So we want to throw our error ourselves. So let's just start with non-terminating errors. So basically, this is the simplest way to throw error. We just have writeError commandlet, pass it a message. We've got an error. We've got a non-terminating error. Just execute it. There's our error. So, and if we want to get the information about the error, we can use in PowerShell 7, we can get the user get error commandlet. And basically, this will just print on our console this error record, and it will expand all the information. So at the top, we get here information of the exception. So in this case, it's a writeError exception. We didn't give it any exception. This is just the default. So this doesn't help our users. It doesn't tell them anything about the error. Then we got the error message. That's the message we put in. And again, we got this category info. So this is the category, not specified, not very helpful. We got a target object, which doesn't get printed because we haven't got a target object. We got the command, the activity, which threw the error. And we got the exception. We also got invocation information. So that will just print out the whole path from where the error occurred, reversed to the script calling that function. So that gives us all that information. So, but this as such isn't very interesting. What we want to do is we want to create a function because we are creating functions, we are creating scripts, we are creating modules, and we want to throw errors which occur when we write errors. So I've got this. So I've got a few demo functions. They're all exactly the same. The only difference is the way the errors are thrown. So I just got a function. It accepts an array of strings. It will loop through this array of strings. And if one string is forbidden fruit, we want to throw errors. So that's the basic function. So the easiest way is writeError. And what information can we pass in to writeError? So what we can do is, we've got a message. We give it. Zoom it.
Please.
Better? Good. Okay. So we got the message property parameter, which is pass a message. We got a category, which is a system enum. So we can just choose from an error category that suits your error best. So let's take invalid argument. Next, we have an error ID. Error ID is just a basic string, an ID for your error. You can define that yourself. It should be unique and fit your error. Next, we got the target object. So target object is the object which caused the error. So you can pass into your error record the actual object that caused the error. So in this case, it's just a string item, but it could be a process object. It could be a hash table, whatever you want. You can take a whole object, pass it in, so the person who receives your error can understand it and know exactly which object caused this error. Next thing is the actual exception. So this can be a bit tricky because this hasn't got any argument completion. So what you can do is there's a blog post by Kevin Marquette. This is from 2017. And he basically just lists the standard .NET errors, exceptions. And you can scroll through here. You get system IO exceptions, system data exceptions. You name it, you'll find it. So here you should go in and look for the exception fits best. Find not found exception, for example. In this case, we can just take the argument exception. But there's also argument null exception and so on. And basically, we can just copy out the exception. In this case, it's a system argument exception. And we can just paste in here with a new keyword, and then we pass in a message to this exception. So this is the message of the exception. And last thing I would like to show you is recommended action. So originally I didn't want to show you recommended action because I always valued it as useless. But then Christian said, come on, you have to show it. It's a great thing. So I said, okay, I'll show it. But then I found out that Justin just did a PR on the new PowerShell 7.5. So if you're in PowerShell 7.5, we will at last get recommended action printed out straight on the console. So if you see Justin today, just go up and give him a hug and say thank you. There he is. So yeah, I've just got previous 7.5 here. So I just got a write message passing in recommended action, never going to give you up. There we have it. We can see it. We got the recommended action. So this is great. So from zoom it, please. So from today on, we're all going to use recommended action. Okay, great. So there we've got our writeError. Let's just quickly splat it, then we can see it better. So here we got our writeError. We will paste it out. Okay, back to the demo. So let's see how it runs. So let's make this a bit bigger. Okay, so we're invoking that function, the writeError function. We're inputting apple, forbidden fruit, orange, and then we just got script still running. So what can we see here? We see a couple of things. So first of all, apple gets computed, it runs, it works. Then we hit the forbidden fruit, our error is printed out just like we expected, but the script still continues. We can see forbidden fruit is also printed, even though we had the error, and I keep on with orange and the script's still running. So that's one thing. So when you use non-terminating errors, always think what happens when you execute this error. So basically, I don't want it to print out my forbidden fruit. So I, for example, can just add a continue, and just a loop iteration. We'll just skip to the next iteration, and then we'll have, again, our error. This is all so big. There we got it. Now apple, we have our error, orange, and our script still running. So now if we investigate our error, we should get some good information, or your user should get good information. So what do we get? We get our argument exception. We don't get our generic exception anymore. We give the user something he can work with. We have the message, of course. Then we got the target object. So there we can drill down, give the target object what's it about. In this case, it's just a string. We got our category info, this time invalid argument, also more helpful than the generic ones. And we got the target object, the writeError activity, and we got the exception again. We got the fully qualified ID. So this is our ID of our exception, so you can look at it. And we got error details. And in error details, we'll scroll down. That's where recommended action is hidden in the error details. So great. So that gives us a lot of information about that error. If you're on PowerShell 5, you cannot use the getError commandlet because it just doesn't exist. So what you can do is just take the automatic variable error, index 0. Index 0 is always the latest error. So all the latest error will always be index 0, and it will push down the errors to index 1, 2, and so on. And the error variable, by the way, can accept 256 errors. No more. After that, it just gets pushed out. But I've never had 256 errors I wanted to look at, so. So if you get the error and just pipe it to select star will help. We will get the error code, and basically we'll get the same with the get as with the getError commandlet. Just the objects are not expanded. So if you want to investigate, you'll have to drill down yourself into it. As you can see, we get the stack. So we start off, this is a line of the function where the error occurred. And then the error bubbled up into my coding script. And this is what I get presented. So once again, if I just execute it again, we will see here with writeError, we will actually get the coding script. So this is your script, where in your script the error occurred, not where it originally was thrown. Okay, great. So let's have a look how it works with a catch try. Okay, here we've got the catch try block. We're invoking the error again, and let's see what happens. Just empty that, execute it again. So what we see here, Apple gets invoked, it prints out Apple, the error is thrown, but it still continues, orange is printed, and we still get script running. So the catch block is never invoked. But the good thing is, the writeError commandlet will understand the error action stop. So if we add error action stop, we will actually convert this error into a terminating error. So if your user who's using your function can control that, it must be advanced commandlet, of course, that the error action preference stops works. So if we execute that again, we see Apple is executed. Then we hit the error. The catch block catches that error, prints out, run into an error, and then we're just going to print out the error, the PS item or PS underscore, and we get it printed out. So we can use error action preference. So that's a good thing about a writeError, because you can turn it into a terminating error. Okay. So the next thing I would like to show you is the $? That's an automatic variable, and it basically just captions, was the execution of your last command successful or not? So if we execute this, it will execute. We will have the non-terminating error, and the $? Is telling us the execution was successful. Bit weird. I've got an error, but it was still successful. Okay, let's just keep that in mind. We will need that later. If we do the error action stop and execute it, and then we'll just do $? We will see it's false. It turned to false. So remember that when we use writeError without error action preference stop, the $? Will be set to true. So that's writeError. So as I told you, we can use other ways to throw non-terminating errors. And one option would be, let me just, it's also big. It's hard navigating. Yeah. Okay. So I've got this new function, invoke cmd writeError. It's exactly the same as last function. Just the only difference is the way we throw the error. So we can take the PS commandlet, writeError method, and we have to pass it to error record. So for that, we have to generate our own record. We haven't got the IntelliSense like with writeError. We have to create it ourselves. So what we're going to do, we're just going to create an error record and assign it to our error variable R. Okay. So we create a new error record with system management automation error record new, and that takes a couple of arguments. So what it wants, what it expects is an exception, it expects an ID, expects an error category, and optionally a target object. So we create a new record, and then we go out, look for our .NET error, which we think is fitting for our error. Take that, we assign an error ID, and we use a system management automation error category for the category. As I said, this is an enumeration. You can just go through it. with IntelliSense, and we can add item. If you don't want item, target item. So if you don't want to add a target object, you can just write in $null. That will also work. And then we take this error record and pass it into the writeError commandlet. So, and here we got the invoke cmd writeError. So we're using this method, and we'll execute that. And it works exactly as, at least as I expected. It invoked Apple, it threw the error, it printed orange, and the script's still running. So it's non-terminating, just like writeError, no difference. And again here, it will work exactly the same way. If we add error action stop, execute it again, we turn the non-terminating error into a terminating error. It will catch block, will catch the error, will print code error, and then print the error. So that works exactly as expected. Now we come back to the $? Automatic variable. So if I execute this time, our error is thrown. It's a non-terminating error. It's skipped to the, and then it prints out false. So actually, if you use writeError commandlet, it will print true. If you use the writeError method, it will print false. So this is just my personal opinion. I think this way is the right way, because then I can inspect was my command or function invoked properly or not. And as soon as I hit error, it says it's false, it wasn't invoked properly. Great. Okay, so that was that for non-terminating errors. Now let's focus on terminating errors. So once again, I've got a new function, throw simple. The function is exactly the same. I loop through my array of strings and I throw if I hit forbidden fruit. And the simplest way is just to use the keyword throw with a message, nothing else. So let's just invoke that. And what happens here? So this is a terminating error. As we can see, Apple is executed. Then exception is thrown, and it stops. It doesn't keep continue. It stopped. It didn't continue executing any commands, anything in my function, and it actually stopped the calling execution as well. So now, if we look at the error, what we see here is the activity. We just get a general exception because we just passed in a message. It doesn't give us any valid or good information. Next, in comparison to writeError, it doesn't show you your calling script. It actually shows you where the error occurred. So this can be a bit of a problem. So for example, you are creating a module for other people to consume. They write a script that hits error. Then the user will be presented with a long string. This error occurred in documents, modules, module name, version, and so on. Somewhere deep down, your user will not, that information is not helpful for that user because he wants to know when his calling script, the error occurred. Where did he mess up? He's not going to go out and fix your module. He might, but probably not. And if we look at the get error command, we can see we got a runtime exception, didn't pass that in, just some generic exception. We've got the message as a target object. We got operation stopped as a category. And as I said, we haven't got any activity. So it doesn't give us a lot of information. But a script stack trace will give us the information we need. So here we can see, here the error was thrown, originated from, and then it bubbled up into my calling script. So the information is there, but it just doesn't get presented to the user. Okay. So let's throw. So, as we said, throw is a terminating error. It will stop execution of your commands, your script, your code. That is not entirely right. So, for some unknown reason, if you've got a throw in your advanced command and you pass in silently continue will suppress the error message. But even worse, your script will continue to run. And this can be a big issue because if you're writing a script and you're saying, if I get certain information passed into my script and I want to terminate the execution, and the user can override that and your script will be executed, things can happen that shouldn't happen. So that is a bit of a downside of throw, that you can override that. So always keep that in mind if you have to use throw. Okay, let's look how it works in a catch try block, because there it might also not work the way you expect. Well, it at least didn't work the way I expected. So I've got a try catch block here. I'm invoking my throw, same example as we had. And I execute that. It's a terminating error. It probably happens what you expect. We've got the apple, the error is caught, and it prints our error. So, but if we can turn our with silently continue our terminating error into a non-terminating error, will that work? No, it will not work. It's still, the catch block still recognizes that it's a terminating error. So the whole behavior is a bit inconsistent, and in the documentation, this is not explained, unfortunately. So that's your basic, the workings of throw. Okay, so we use throw with just a message, which will help your users not. So let's look how else we can use throw. So what we can do is we can use throw instead of with a message, we can just use it with an exception. So we can use throw, get the exception, and just pass the exception in. And then we've got it. The activity for some reason isn't execution. It's changed to stop, doesn't matter. And if we go to get error, we can scroll up. We can see we've got our argument exception, at least something, but everything else is empty. We've got a category because we didn't define that. So how would we define that with a throw? So what we can do is we can create an error record and pass an error record to throw. So in this case, I'm just going throw and passing an error record. And I'm creating it the same way I created the error record for writeError. So I've got a new system automation error record new. I'm passing in an argument exception, or my exception. I chose argument exception, my error ID, my error category, and my item. But this time I want to pass in even more information. So this is like the basic construct of an error record, but I can enhance it. I can add more information. So for example, I can take my error variable, choose a category info, and define the activity. And I'm just passing in the command, which is throwing the error. Then I want to add recommended actions because I want to make Christian and Justin happy. So I want to add recommended actions. So I can create a new error details object with a message, a system management automation error details. I'll save that into my error details variable, and then I can access the recommended action with error details.recommended action, pass in my recommended action, and then I'll take my error record and take the error details property and just pass in my newly created error details into it. So then we got it. So if I execute that, we get the error. As you can see, we don't get the operation stopped anymore. We get something sensible which the user can actually use. And of course, if we go into get error, we will see we got our exception, check. We got our message, also check. We got invalid category info. We got the invalid argument, which we set. We got a target object, which we wanted. We get the activity once again, the invoke throw error record. That's our function in which the error was thrown. And I get my exception again. I got my fully qualified ID, and I got my error details. And if I would look into that property, I will see my recommended action. So that's throw for you. How are we doing with time? Oh, okay. Okay. Now, as you can hear, I'm not a big fan of throw. Not really. So how else can I throw terminating errors? As I showed in the beginning, there's also the throw. Here, the PSConfEU throw terminating error method. And this, I can just pass an error record. And lazy as I am, I hate creating error records. If you've done it 10 times, it just gets boring. In the beginning, I thought it was difficult. So I just created a function called new error record. It's the only function in a module called error record, which you can get from the gallery if you want. And basically, I can pass in my message. I can pass in my category. I've got argument completion and so on. I can pass in my error ID, my target object, my exception. Here, I don't have to go out and find the exception. So basically, I'll just look at all exceptions currently loaded in the DLLs, and we'll just give you all the options. So if I want a file not found, I'll just type in file not found exception, and then I'll have that set as an exception. Makes my life easy. And then I can also pass in a recommended action. You might have noticed I haven't passed in the activity, which I did with throw, to get that nice, where did the error occur? You don't need that with the throw terminating error method. So let's have a look how that runs. Invalid parameter. Great, I did something wrong. What did I do wrong? Should be right. Try it again.
I didn't go cover.
Ah, yeah, of course. Thank you. I didn't come. So I hit a terminating error. The execution was stopped. Yeah, fooled me. Okay. Now I executed this invoke throw terminating error. And as I already stated, this is a terminating error. However, something strange happens. So apple gets printed correct. Forbidden fruit hits the error, throws the error. Orange, it doesn't get printed because it's a terminating error. However, script still runs because it doesn't stop the execution of your coding script. So once again, throw will stop the execution of the function and of the coding script. The throw terminating error will stop your function script, but will not stop your coding script. So there's a different behavior. So you have to keep that in mind. Another thing about throw terminating error, as we had it with throw, I can change the throw to a non-terminating error by adding silently continue. Thankfully, that does not work with throw terminating error. So even though I set it to silently continue, it doesn't have any influence on it. It stays a terminating error and it will not run. Okay. How is it behaving in a try-catch block? Actually, it behaves exactly as we expect. It's a terminating error. There's no way around that. It will print apple, the error gets caught, and print out the error. So everything happens as expected. So now we are through with my demos. Let's go back to my slides. So, conclusion. If you throw errors, and we have to throw errors, give the users as much information as possible. Please, for God's sake, do not just give them a message. Give them a whole error record. Tell them what's going wrong. Second thing is, use terminating errors as your default. Only fall back to non-terminating errors if you really have to, because you are looping through some process or have pipeline support. Like with that example, you're going up and pulling information from 100 servers. That's when you need that. Next is, I would strongly advise you to use PSCommandlet writeError method and PSCommandlet throw terminating error method. So writeError, basically just because it's got the $? Gets set properly. So I've got scripts where I actually evaluate the $? And I think it's very useful. And I want that if an error is thrown, that should always be false. If you have to use throw, which you don't, but if you really have to, please use an error record, not just a message. And there are some really, really outstandingly good modules which we all use every day. I will not name it, but they just use throw with a message, and it just helps nothing at all. And when you're not the person, when you're not the person who's writing on throwing errors, but the user who's scripting, always use try-catch in any script. Never live without it. Okay, questions?
When thrown with a break, won't better.
What?
Following it by a break.
I don't understand the question with break. So
That's systematically terminating of our cells. Even with a break. If you put a break just after the throw, will be terminating now. Repeat the question.
I didn't get the question, to be honest.
If you throw an error,
Yeah.
right now, it continued the execution afterwards.
Yeah. Ah.
So if you, after the throw, include a break in the
Okay, I understood. So sorry. So the question is, if I have a non-terminating error and just have a break or an exit or something after, is it a terminating error? It will terminate the execution of the script, yes, but technically it's still not it's still a non-terminating error because the error is thrown and then the break is run. But that would work. It would work. I don't know why you want to do that, but it would work. It would definitely work.
Ways to stop the user to use the error action. Silently continue.
So the question is there a way to stop the user using error action silently continue or error action preference silently? No. Simple answer, no, and that's why you shouldn't use throw. Any more questions?
I've got one. I always, when I write a script, I always make a log file, and then when worries, errors, and anything, is there an easy way to get that?
I'm not understanding questions very well today. If someone can translate, so ask again, please.
When I write a PowerShell script, I always
Yeah.
when it's not running in a console-like thingy,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
there's an ask or something, and I recently appointed writeError in PowerShell. I didn't know that it existed. Is there an easy way to generate a log file?
Ooh, that's it. So the question is, so you've got a script, you generate log files just for everything. Is there some way to log the errors away? An easy way. I don't know. Probably I haven't got an easy answer for that because I'm not sure myself. I would say you can save away the error variable. Can log that away. Yeah. So if you want terminating script, Justin, no.
Are you aware of PowerShell transmitters? Look up PowerShell transmitters.
Yeah. But if you want to know a lot about logging, just go to Fred Weinman. He's here at the conference. He's got a PS framework, and he does a lot with logging. So he's the guy to us. Also, Justin's answer to the question was, do you know transcript function in PowerShell? And you can use that for the logging. No more questions? Then you may leave.